All right, let's try it again. We have some top-heavy talent there at the center.
That's right.
With our group here. We have a team here. We have a good group of Roy, Rich, and certainly Kyle Neubeck and Derek Bodner. Our team is great. Absolutely Bree in there too. We're loaded here on the PHLY Sixers show, and we check back in at the center with Derek Bodner. Derek, just to follow up again, do you have an update based on, outside of what we've seen, of course, from Twitter, an update on Jared McCain? That fall looked very scary, and it was right in front of you and Kyle on press row.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously Nick Nurse came out after the game and said that he was, going to the hospital to get looked at, and they mentioned earlier before that they were going to look at him for concussion symptoms. Kyle talked to Kelly Oubre in the locker room. I talked to Jeff Doughton a little bit, and both of them said that they had spoken to Jared after the game, that they thought he would be fine, and that their prayers are with him. Outside of that, we really don't have too much of an update beyond that. But like I said, a couple people who spoke to him, seems like he was in pretty good spirits, and they both think that he should be okay. But obviously that was a little bit of a scary fall he had there, a scary reaction he had to that fall. He looked like he was in very obvious pain. You don't entirely know, what the full details of that are. But I would say early signs are, at least some people think that he are confident he will be okay. But obviously we want to see that get checked out.
Very, very positive news to hear about Jared McCain. Let's talk a little bit about the power forward position, specifically KJ Martin, who got an extended look and looked fairly decent, kind of acquitted himself pretty well at power forward. Before the game, we had heard Nick Nurse talk about Gershon Yabusele might get some power forward minutes tonight, but he really didn't that much, and except for that small stint in the second quarter when he was out there with Andre Drummond. If you had to kind of handicap it right now, who's the leader in the clubhouse in the backup forward position for the Sixers?
Yeah, it's a good question because, I mean, Yabu has been playing almost exclusively at center. He did play maybe 3 or so minutes at the power forward spot in that second quarter. Like you said, they played almost exclusively in his zone because the Nets were so small. And KJ has had a real good preseason and had a good game here tonight. Obviously brings a level of athleticism that's just real tough to match. And he had Kyle on press row called it 2.5 lobs because he was fighting for that one lob that went to Kelly in transition, but he has been a lob threat, and he has put a lot of pressure on the rim in that regard. Somebody you really have to body up off ball. He has been good. I will say until he shows that he is confident and capable in that jumper, he didn't make 3 today. It's going to be tough, I think, to pencil him in too much. I do think that jumper is going to be big. They've been talking all training camp and all preseason about how much work he's put in and how much he's improved. We haven't really seen it in game action yet, unless you can space the floor. It is going to be tough to put a non-shooting power forward next to someone like, let's say, Andre Drummond in that second unit. And I do think what Yabu has shown with his shot early on here in the preseason, he was 1 for 2 again from deep here tonight, probably makes him the favorite. But KJ certainly played well, and he's played better than I expected. I think the real question becomes, is he going to be ahead of Ricky in that rotation? And I think quite clearly, based on what he's shown in the preseason, he has been the better of the athletic wings.
Definitely looks like it. Derek Bodner joining us live from the center here on the PHLY Sixers postgame show presented by Rothman Orthopedics and Bet365. And Derek, we talked about and gave a nice nod to Kelly Oubre for his night tonight. And we always talk about the irrational confidence, but he believes he is on that level. But tonight he did it very efficiently. When we talk about the lob, that was great to see, but he was active on defense also. But he had to be that secondary scorer with no Paul George tonight and no Embiid, of course. And he showed out well, 5 for 8, knocked in a couple of threes, got to the free throw line, as Roy mentioned, 6 for 7. He acquitted himself really well. And if this at least has to start without Paul George beginning next week against the Milwaukee Bucks, a nice showing in the event that they don't play on Friday.
Yeah, I mean, look, when Kelly is getting out in the break and putting pressure on the rim in that regard, when he's making his threes, and he had a nice dribble into a three, which is something I usually don't like seeing from Kelly, but he looked very comfortable and clean on that one. And when he is getting the free throw line, he is going to be a much different version of himself. I think obviously he hasn't been that, especially with the 3-point shot all the time. We still haven't gotten to see how he's going to play this year next to Joel Embiid, which last year really helped him with that, getting good looks on that perimeter shot. But I think for the most part, we have a pretty good idea of what Kelly is and what he isn't. You're hoping that he can grow with that shot, especially, like I said, getting the extra space playing next to Embiid. And this is, one of the best versions of Kelly that you're going to get. It's obviously coming in a preseason game against a team that is horrible and disinterested. But I think he did everything you would want him to do. And like I said, just getting out in the break, getting a couple of easy ones and making those threes really does help his game go a long way.
We talked a little bit about the power forward, a lot of it about the power forward rotation. Let's talk about the guard rotation, specifically the point guard situation. We discussed a little bit about Jared McCain tonight, outside of the injury. Didn't have the best shooting night, but he led the second unit for a little bit in the third quarter. Obviously, you have Kyle Lowry, who didn't play tonight. Eric Gordon played, 8 minutes, but had a pretty decent shooting night in the first quarter. How does that guard position kind of shake out behind Tyrese Maxey once the regular season rolls around?
Yeah, and obviously Kyle Lowry did not play tonight. McCain was, I think, a little bit up and down, right. Not just with the shot, but he had he traveled at one point. Kyle pointed out, you got a 3-second violation. How does a guard get a 3-second violation on defense? You're usually not anywhere even near that. I thought, and defensively, especially earlier on, I thought he struggled. I thought he played a lot better there in that fourth quarter before going down. But I think I've been mostly fairly impressed with the way Jared has played so far in the preseason, and probably more specifically the way he has competed. He's going to have his defensive limitations. I thought we saw that, especially it felt like the Breakers game, oddly enough, was maybe his low point defensively. But, I thought he has, as the preseason has worn on, I think he's looked pretty comfortable as a passer. That shot has been a little bit up and down, but I think clearly I believe in that shot, and I think it's going to be there if you give him enough reps. And defensively, he competes. And the question is purely competing going to be enough? Because I think athleticism-wise, he's got a lot to overcome. He's going to have to learn the tricks of the trade to overcome that. But I think he has probably played better so far in the preseason than I would have expected. I think certainly, a lot of the coaches and players have been talking him up here in the training camp and preseason. But it is a long way to go for a young rookie to be able to make an impact and be a consistent contributor on a team that has the aspirations that the Sixers do. So I think there's a lot of work to do. And obviously, we haven't seen a single game where the whole squad has been healthy. Most of these games here, very few of the star players have been playing outside of Tyrese Maxey. So how well some of these role players fit is going to go a long way in determining which one of them stay in the rotation, and we just haven't gotten a great chance to evaluate that.
Well, listen, man, we appreciate you checking in with us live from the center. Be safe getting home. We'll be back tomorrow together at 3 p.m. With you and Kyle, and we will talk to you then. Thanks, man.
Thank you, Derek.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You got it. Derek Bodner joining us live from the center. Good breakdown, and, of course, good news with Jared McCain. We hope we hear even better news from the team about his after his scary fall.
We all silly like the mayor.